Bum 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 ba-dum ba-dum bum bum
Oh,
bum
man,
bum
bum.
man 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 bum 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 bum.
Go on, let's join in. Money, bum, bum, bum. Bash Bros. Naughty, 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 naughty. The gym that you were at virtually, yeah, from home?
Yes, from home, obviously.
Yeah, from home.
Because we can only work from home.
Yeah, you can only work from home.
But if you can go out, don't go out.
Yeah.
If you can't go out, then go out and then come back in.
Yeah, and then eat out to help out so that we can lock you all down so no one gets helped out.
And then blame us because it's your fault for going out.
Yeah, how dare you? And anyone who has any fun, we must hate them. How dare they go to Dubai and have fun? Scumbags.
Talking about
to go on holiday, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like a witch hunt, isn't it? It's fucking mad. I mean, it's brilliant, really. They've managed to like create a fair society where like we all like hate each other. It's nuts.
Yeah. Well, I've been going to my gym and I've had the police called on me 3 times.
Yeah. I mean, the gym local to us, Trojan, isn't open, but there's a shop like attached to it, and they're open, and the police turn up all the fucking time because people just phone the police.
Do you believe people ring the police, or the police are just spineless enough that they?
I really think that they do ring the police, because I'm sure the police got some better shit to do. But the thing is, the thing, if there's a complaint made, they have to respond. It like becomes top priority. In the first lockdown, I was walking my dog, and you meet other dog people, and we were talking, and then before we knew it, there were like 3 or 4 dog people like close, and someone rang the police, and they actually turned up to this field to like tell us not to congregate. And I was like, we're more than 2 meters away. Like, yeah, so people are like, are doing mad stuff.
Yeah, I've got a friend who works for the 999 service, and he phoned me and he said, Lee, it is absolutely mental the amount of people just grassing each other up and grassing their neighbours up.
Yeah. On 999, mind, what's your emergency? Well, there might be someone with a virus somewhere.
Yeah.
It's like that's not an emergency.
So yeah, he had one phone call saying, my neighbour's been out an hour and 5 minutes out of his house.
Fuck off. Oh my God.
Did you know right at the start last year, they were offering an incentive of a £200 reward if you grass someone up like successfully?
Mad, is it?
Right, welcome back to another episode of Bash Bros, best Bash Bros podcast in the UK. Vancouver.
The only Bash Bros.
Yeah, but it is the best one.
It is. It's the fun one. So
it's the best Bash Bros.
Yeah. So we have Lee Powell with us on today's podcast. Sorry, Lee, do you want to give us a background on your bodybuilding career? How you started?
Do you want me to start right from the beginning?
Yeah.
You can start with everyone, but
okay.
Not from like the womb and that, like a little bit.
Yeah, not that far,
okay.
But.
So when I was 17, that's when I first picked up a dumbbell. I think I did what everyone else does, is went to Argos, bought a dumbbell set, barbell set, and just started training at home in my bedroom. But the reason why I did that was in my teenage years, I suffered quite badly from depression due to certain things that happened in my life. And I was like, I need to sort this shit out. Do you know what I mean? I know you guys talk a lot about mental health on here. So I knew I needed to, exercise, I needed to find an outlet to battle that depression. So I sort of thought, right, I need to do something. And I was the kid at school that was crap at everything sport-wise. So I was like the last kid to be picked for the football team, the rugby team. I was that kid that got the stitch doing the cross country. I was just basically shit at everything. The only saving grace was my PE teachers at the time. They said, you should go into the multi-gym and start training because you've got pretty good genetics. I didn't really understand what they meant at that point in time, but I thought, because when I went through puberty, I sort of like went from this soft, little, short, fat kid to going through puberty, and all of a sudden, within about a year, at the age of 15, I become really lean, had abs, pecs, everything. I had a really good physique before I even touched a weight. So for me, doing some weight training was probably the next best thing for me to do, because I was crap at everything else. Apart from snooker, I was a really good snooker player. But again, that wasn't really a sport that I wanted to excel at, okay?
Do they reckon it's a sport, snooker? Can they say if you can smoke whilst doing it, then it's not a sport?
Is it? Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's more like, yeah, is it? It's like chess, isn't it, or something like that. But
Yeah.
my dad built a full-size snooker room at our house, and so basically I've become obsessed with that, and I was just playing snooker like 24/7, and I've become really good at it. And it was one of those sports where I wasn't part of a team, and it was just down to me and the effort that I put in. So I think I sort of like applied that intensity and that focus to my weight training. So anyway, I started like reading about, to get out of this depression, I started reading books about positive thinking. I knew I needed to change my mindset. And in a lot of these books, that they sort of like emphasize the need for like physical activity. So went to Argos with my mate, stole a shopping trolley to push the dumbbells and the barbells home. And I can remember unpacking those weights in my bedroom and like setting up the barbell, setting up the dumbbells. And that was like the pivotal moment for me. I didn't know what a bodybuilding show was. Didn't really know what weight training was. It was just something that I seen some friends do. And then that first day in my bedroom training, something happened mentally, physically, and spiritually, where that depression sort of just left me. And every night when I come home from school, I was in the sixth form then doing my A-levels, I would just train. I would train my whole body every single night. And that depression that I was experiencing was just going away every time I trained. And I thought to myself, well, I'm onto something here. I'm feeling a lot better. And then I sort of like discovered a bodybuilding magazine, Bodybuilding Monthly. And that was it. As soon as I saw those physiques, and also watching Pumping Iron, which I think we've all done, and I watched that about 1 million times, I become totally obsessed with aspirations to become a bodybuilder at that time. Didn't really know what a bodybuilding show was. All I knew is that I was feeling good, my physique was changing, and I was feeling positive, and I wasn't suffering that deep depression. I mean, the depression that I sort of like experienced was like, all I wanted to do was, I was in the sixth form, went to college, come home, straight into bed, just wanted to shut myself off from the rest of the world.
Do you think that by training and having like a goal and seeing yourself improve almost every day, or at least sort of time to time, that gave you something to work towards? So that sort of helped you get over that? Do you think that's what helped?
Yeah, I mean, it was just the actual physical feeling from like lying in bed every day and just shutting yourself off from the world, and then going. I mean, when someone's truly depressed, the hardest thing is to get out of bed, just brush your teeth and wash your face. You know, from going from that, I had this sort of like compulsion to lift weights, because I knew what it was doing positively. I wasn't really setting myself any goals at that stage. I just knew I was doing something positive with my time, and I was feeling better about myself. So that's sort of like what got me into, I would say, weight training, but not bodybuilding.
Was it also an escape as well? Because like it's like you go and train, it's like respite, isn't it? Because you're just in that moment, like, you know, it's exhausting to have those feelings all the time.
Yeah.
And then just to even have that time off in the gym, as well as all the endorphins and stuff, you were trying to escape in bed, which probably wasn't actually escaping. It's probably just spinning your mind. Like, do you think it like having that respite as well, just a little bit of time off the like struggle?
What I could say is depression is a very painful feeling, and I think what I was doing, and it's quite debilitating. Whereas weight training for me was still a form of pain, but it was an empowering pain. So I was probably replacing one pain for another pain, but the pain of the weight training only had positives. Whereas when I was 17, from like the ages of like 14, 15, 16, 17, the cycles of depression were getting worse and worse and worse. So it was like a point where it's like, I need to stop this now. I need to get out of this. And then as soon as I started weight training, it was a cycle that I was physically, mentally, and spiritually feeling better. So I wouldn't say it was an escapism, but it was sort of like, some people would say bodybuilding is a form of self-harm, you know, but and it can be a painful sport, but the actual positives that you get out of training and like looking after yourself, that's the reason that I continued with it.
And amazing that you found that like you had faith in the system of that you put in, you know, just that time every day, and you were getting better, and the faith that you kind of, I don't know whether you got better or whatever, but like better than it was. Having faith in the system is an amazing thing to click.
Yeah.
You know, and I hope a lot of people find their thing, because it doesn't have to be bodybuilding, does it?
No. But basically the depression ultimately went because I didn't have time for depression. I immersed myself in bodybuilding then. I discovered what a bodybuilding competition was. I used to get my dad to drive me up and down the country to go and watch bodybuilding shows. And I was just absolutely obsessed. So if I wasn't training, I was reading all the magazines, Flex, Bodybuilding Monthly, Muscle and Fitness, Muscle Mag, all of the magazines. Every month I would buy them. I would read any book that I could on training, and also videos and stuff like that, VHS tape, any video footage that I could buy, like when Arnold did his comeback, that video, Superstars of Muscle with Dorian Yates. I just immersed myself so that I was always thinking about bodybuilding 24/7. So I've become totally obsessed. And I think what I did that a lot of people don't do nowadays is they don't look towards the history of the sport. And I didn't want to know what Arnold Schwarzenegger did when he was Mr. Olympia. I wanted to know what Arnold Schwarzenegger did when he was my age at 17, 18. So I made a massive effort to find out what those bodybuilders did to get where they got, you know. So I learned my history of who was who in the Olympias. Not that I had any aspirations of competing in the Olympia then, but I didn't really know a lot about the British scene. All I knew is what I was like exposed to in the magazines and the videos, and I just wanted to know what made those bodybuilders so great at like the same age as me.
Well, that's clever, because a lot of people, they look at all the magazines and what all the pros are doing, and then they're trying to do that.
Yeah.
When they're just starting, it's like, no, you're not them.
Yeah, that's it.
What I like to say about people with powerful body parts as well, like someone who's genetically got like massive arms, don't look at them for arm training.
Yeah.
Look at someone who's like come through and improved something, because that's probably relevant to you.
That's it. And at that point in time, I was like 17, and I think I started training at about 140 pounds, so 10 stone. And then 8 months later, my goal was size, and 8 months later, I was 50 pounds heavier. And that was no gear or anything like that. I just become a total loner. I didn't hang out with any of my friends. I just trained, ate, slept, set my alarm at 3 o'clock for my weight gain protein shake in the middle of the night. And 8 months later, I was 50 pounds heavier, and then like people were like, "Wow, what have you done?" You know, so it was like I knew then that I did have good genetics, you know, at that point in time.
So from there and being a kid,
Yep.
what was your first show? I mean, you obviously knew things were going, okay, I'm obviously pretty good at this. It's, you know, it's serving a purpose for me personally, but actually I kind of owe it to the scene to actually put myself out there.
Right. So what happened was then I joined the gym that I currently own back in 1993, walked through the doors, and that was like another pivotal moment where I was like, shit, this is crazy. I walked in the gym, there was like this, because it's an old church, there was like it was in January, there was like a haze of fog in the gym where everyone was sweating. The place like stank of Raljecks. And I just looked around, and I seen these guys, and they were big guys back then. I don't care what anyone says. So it wasn't just an impression because I was young. And there was guys squatting 350 kilos, 380 kilos. People were benching 180 kilos on a daily basis. You'd see those sorts of weights lifted. There was no chatting and bullshitting it. Everyone was just in there training. And that was like something I thought, right, this is definitely something I want to be part of.
Because there was a big powerlifting scene when you joined, right? I mean, I've come to your gym and you've got all the old photos of like some mad stuff, and like the powerlifting platforms, like the altar, it's like where the altar was, isn't it? It's fucking
yeah. So the squat rack is where the altar would have been in the church. And like on a Friday night, that powerlifting rack, it would be leg night for everyone in the gym on Friday night. So there would be like a queue of 12 or 13 people all queuing up to squat in that squat rack. And
at the altar.
Yeah, at the altar, like Tom Platt says, you know. And we would train for like 2 or 3 hours just squatting, no other exercise, just squatting. And I was training with guys that were just squatting these incredible weights. So I couldn't fail to be like in awe of these guys. And again, so from that, what led me on to competing was I think like one of the guys, I must have took my top off one day in the gym and I had a vest on, and a couple of the guys come up to me, they're like, "Are you competing?" I was like, "No, what's competing?" They're like, "You should do a bodybuilding show, you'd be good." And then that was it then. I think it was about a year later, I did my first contest, which was called the WPF Mr. Wales competition in Chepstow. And I was 19 years old, and I went into the junior class and I won that. And then I got invited to compete in the WPF Mr. Universe contest in Dusseldorf, Germany. And that was it. I come fourth in that show, and that was the start of my career. And I just, as soon as I stepped on stage, I absolutely loved being up there posing. It was almost like an alter ego, really. But I just absolutely, as soon as I stepped on stage, I got a buzz that I'd never had before from anything.
Well, because that was your beginning, but you went way farther than that. So you had these like pivotal moments before.
Yeah.
Like, what was the bit where you were like, okay, I've gone like through this, like I'm gonna hit like the Olympia, gonna play all the way. Was there someone who you like came into contact with and was like, okay, you're having some fun now?
Yeah. So what happened was I was only 19, and the following year I decided to I watched quite a lot of junior EFBB shows, and without blowing my own trumpet, I watched the junior classes, and I knew but I would win. They weren't that hard, they weren't that tough. So a year later,
explain what the EFBB, that version of what that is now.
So the UK BFF, if people can still remember that, it went from the EFBB to the UK BFF, and now obviously you've got two bros, which is the route to get to your pro card. IFBB.
So that was the route to the card at the time, wasn't it?
The EFBB was the route to the card because you had the EFBB British Championships.
Yeah.
So then basically I decided a year later to compete in a local show in my hometown in Gloucester, and I thought, right, fuck it, I'm going to go straight into the Misters class and skip the juniors. I thought, sorry, if I compete in the juniors, I'm not really going to be pulling the best out of myself. And that's what I wanted to do. So I challenged myself. I'm going to be competing against guys who've been competing like 10, 15 years. And that's exactly what I did. So I went and done the middleweight class, the 80 kilo class, and come first in that against guys that have been training for years. And one of the local guys that trained in my gym at the time, a guy called Carlo Gab, he'd been training for like 14, 15 years. He was one of the top middleweights in the country. And it was quite funny because like, he didn't take me serious. He's like, Lee's not going to win. He's only a young kid. And we get backstage and I strip my clothes off. He comes over to me. He went, "It's going to be between me and you." And I was like, "Really?" So I started thinking, yeah, I got second place here. I'm really happy with that. And then they announced the winner, and it was me. And I was like, shit. And so that's when I qualified for my first British Championships, which I went on to do, and didn't make the top six. Speaking to the judges, I got 7th, but again, so that was a totally different level with the British Championships. And that was when I think John Hodgson, was it 95? Yes, that was 1995. John Hodgson won the middleweights that year. So that was sort of like the standard that I was up against then. But yeah, so at 20 years old, I was doing my first British Championships in the men's class.
Fuck.
That's crazy.
And so what year did you win your card then?
Right, so what happened then is like I thought, okay, I'm pretty good at this. And I went back to my gym, and the guy that owned it at the time was a guy called Mick Barry. And 95. And I was like, what? He goes, "You're going to be British champion." And as soon as he said that, it sort of like made it real. And I needed to solidify that as a goal. And then I got 2 really good training partners behind me at that stage. And they were like, "Lee, you know, you can become British champion." So that 97 competed in a massive lineup in the light heavies. Against John Hodgson again, I got a bit of revenge on John. And I managed to make the top 6 in that at 22 years of age. And that was against like the likes of Steve Crichton, Linville Miller, Steve Avery, some really top names and some big classes. So I was like, right, okay, I've made the top 6. I can only go up from here. Then after that, I got married, had a son, took a couple of years off.
Who took your genetics by the looks of things?
What do you mean?
Well, didn't you share a photo of him? Is that your boy on Instagram?
Yeah. So my son, he's
like fucking stacked.
12 years old, he did his own contest diet, and he was like just training in his bedroom. He was walking down into the kitchen one day, and I was like, what do you look like? And so I was like, quickly took a picture of him, and I was like, shit, you could be a really good bodybuilder. You know?
I mean, no wonder when he's 12, he's like actually jacked.
He's got like Kevin Levrone genetics. He's got absolutely crazy, you know, because he's mixed race, so he's got my genetics, my wife's genetics, but the thing is, what he can't do is he can't do the diet, you know, like a lot of the young kids nowadays.
Well, I think at 12, you got to eat the turkey Twizzlers, chicken nuggets, you know.
Well, he was eating steak sandwiches, and stealing my protein powder. You know, and he got ripped just doing that, you know, but obviously he was just training in his bedroom, just doing loads of like high intensity stuff and just got ripped.
I just used to steal my dad's weed. didn't make me gain it at all.
Mate, I wish I could do just steak sandwiches every day. Jesus.
Mate, just bring it out, the new thing. Steak sandwich diet.
It's gonna work.
So you won. So we haven't even got to the pro card yet.
No. So what happened then? Took 3 years off, got married, had a son, and then thought, right, okay. As soon as my son was born, I was like, I'm going back to doing my bodybuilding now. I was sort of like,
did you have some time off on that?
Only off supplements. Yeah.
Okay.
So, obviously, to get my wife pregnant at the time, I needed to sort of like reset things. So yeah, I had a bit of time off that. But no, I was still training. Always trained. Training is part of my life. It always has been, always will be. I'll never stop training. But what happened was, so had the baby. I was like, right, okay, I'm going back on the gear, and I'm going to give myself 3 years to see if I can win the British Championships. And then so that was in 2000. I come back to the light heavies, qualified at the Leicester show. I think I did quite a few shows that year, and I did the British Championships and managed to come second to Steve Avery, who was a former British champion anyway. And then it was pretty obvious what I needed to do then, you know, so I've gone from 6th to 2nd. There was only one place to go next. And that year, I mean, some people say I should have won, but I don't think I should have won. I think Steve was better at the day. But the one thing that I said to my wife, I said, what could I have done to improve for my preparation for that show? And she said to me, the only thing that you could have done was believe in yourself more. You know, I sort of like always had this negative nagging, like, oh, I can't be good enough. I can't be good enough. It's always comparing myself to other people. So as soon as she said that to me, the next day I woke up and I was like, right, I'm going to be British champion next year without a shadow of a doubt. There's nothing. Every day I will dedicate my whole 24 hours to that one end goal. Okay, so I'd already like envisioned. I already knew I was going to be British champion, and I just needed to act it out. So I'd already planned it in my mind, and my attention to detail that year was just like phenomenal. And the whole year, it was a whole year of prep for that show, and yet turned up at the 2001 British Championships, light heavies, and I knew I was going to win as soon as I took my clothes off, and I won my pro card there.
And what age were you there?
I was just turned 27 then. Yeah, just turned 27.
And you're beating seasoned veterans in the game.
Pretty quickly, yeah. You know, pretty quickly.
So having that, like, the mindset where you kind of like flicked a switch and just like, yeah, I'm in, and then having it like actually like birth, it was real. You believed and it did actually happen. I suppose that was the kind of petrol in the tank then, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't for me, because I thought, right, that's it, I'm done now. That's it, I've achieved my goal. I don't want to be a pro.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't want to be a pro. The main reason for me is the reason that I was depressed when I was going through my teenage years was I lost my brother in a road traffic accident when I was 10. And I just knew I needed to do something to dedicate something to his memory. So the day after I won the British Championships, I went straight to my local newspaper, told them my story about my brother dying, and I wanted to dedicate my trophy and my title to his name, you know, and that's what I did. And that was it. I was like, I've achieved my goal now. I knew I was going to be British champion, and I didn't have any thoughts whatsoever of becoming a pro at all. I was like, that's the job done now. But it wasn't until, so I still loved my training, still did that, but I'd achieved the goal. And USN, you must remember USN.
Yeah.
They approached me for a sponsorship. And I was like, okay. So they gave me, because they were actually based in Cheltenham at the time when they first come over to England in about 2000, in the early 2000s, 2002, 2003. And they called me into the office to offer me a sponsorship, knowing that I just turned pro, and they wanted someone to represent the company. And I was like, okay, this is what they offered me. They offered me, we'll give you free supplements, we'll put your photos in the magazines, and that's your sponsorship. And I was like, nah, I don't. That's shit. I don't want. I wasn't a massive supplement user anyway, and I wasn't interested in being in the magazines. I thought to myself, if I'm gonna go down this route of becoming a professional bodybuilder, I want money. I want money. I want my travel expenses paid, my hotel bills paid, and I want all my supplements free. I don't want any deals or anything like that. I wanted the full shebang. And they said no. So I was like, okay, that's fair enough. That's cool. A month later, they called me again, come into the office. They said, right, okay, Lee, this is what we're going to do. We're going to pay you X amount per month. We're going to pay for all your travel. We're going to pay for your hotel bills. And obviously you're going to get your free supplements. So at that point in time, I was like, said to my wife, I've got an opportunity now where I can travel the world and I can do stuff that I wouldn't have been able to do. And I was doing it bodybuilding, something that I loved. And they gave me a sponsorship, and I stayed with them for 13 years, so probably one of the longest contracts a pro's had in this country. And they treated me really, really well, So that was like my incentive to becoming a pro. And
I suppose they weren't expecting you to get your balls out and just be like, nah, fuck that.
Like, what, for turning down the sponsorship?
Yeah, just being like, yeah, nah, fuck that, I need money.
Yeah,
they probably weren't. They were just trying it on a little bit when they thought this guy's just going to take some protein. It's going to be fine.
But I had a family to feed. At that point in time, I was working 7 nights a week on the door.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need some money from this now. This is expensive. I'd say it's expensive. It was like every penny that I had from the money that I earned went on my bodybuilding, on my food, my supplements and stuff like that.
I know that feel.
And my wife, she looked after everything else, all the household bills and stuff like that. And I was just like saying to her, I promise I'll make a success of this. Just trust me on this one. I can do this, and I can make a career out of it. And she stuck with me, and so slowly, surely managed to get the gym. And then I started my pro career in 2003.
What were the biggest highlights in the pro career?
The biggest highlights, what, individual shows or?
Just like what, individual shows or where you competed against someone, or some eye-openers, or just pivotal moments, really, because you've had such a spanse in the pro league as well.
Yeah.
Like I
actually did. I think I did 13 amateur shows and 17 pro shows. So I competed in more pro shows than the amateurs. And I sort of like experimented with my physique, and I experimented with different looks. The reason that I experimented was because, of course, there was no 202, there was no 212 class initially.
Yeah.
So in 2003, it was like, okay, what do I do? I'm going to have to try and come in bigger to compete against the likes of like Marcus Rules in my first pro show.
No one needs that. No one needs that.
I know. Dexter Jackson was in it. Darian Charles was in it. Troy Alves was in it. So I had all these guys that were bigger than me, and I was like, right, okay, I need to up my game and put some size on. So I experimented with different looks throughout my career. Bear in mind, when I turned pro, I was about 197 pounds or 90 kilos. And then for my first pro show, I think I put on about 10, 12 pounds, and was about 208 pounds, something like that. So I got bigger. But I didn't necessarily get better when I was getting bigger. I didn't actually like the look of my physique. And I experimented with like things like insulin and stuff like that, just to try and put that size on. And I noticed that when I was competing in the pro shows, my placings weren't that great. The bigger I got, I found that my placings got better the lighter body weights that I competed at. So I competed in the open shows from 2003 to 2007. And then the introduction of the 202 class come in. And by that point, I was on a stage weight of like 215 pounds. So I was like ripped at 215 pounds, but I was going to have to start losing muscle tissue to make that class. And that's when I got involved with Neil Hill. And Neil had become a friend from doing the competitions in Wales. And he always saying to me, let me prep you for a show, let me prep you for a show. And I was like, I always said no. And then this one time I was like, okay, let's give Neil a go. And that was it. The first year I worked with him, Neil's a really good coach. He's got a really good eye. And I think I was probably one of the first IFBB pros to actually work with him and travel abroad with him competing. And we just gelled. I loved his approach to training, and he sort of like, I would say he transformed my physique from being pretty average pro to what I would say is a pretty decent pro in terms of nailing condition, posing and presentation, mental approach, just the whole like everything that goes into a bodybuilding show. And yeah, he was a big help in my career. And as soon as I started working with him, my placings got really good. I actually made a top 6 placing in an open show in Holland, and you had like Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler first and second. And Eddie Abu was, I think Eddie Abu was 4th, and Hida Yamagishi, he was 5th, and I was 6th. So, and that was a big lineup as well on one of the Dutch Grand Prix. So to be in the top 6 with Ronnie, you know, and Jay Cutler, that was a moment that was very special, you know. But Neil got me absolutely shredded, and I was probably lighter at that show than when I turned pro.
Really?
Was there any specific approach that he used that got you to that condition? Was there
it Rice Krispie squares? Was it? It was. You got to eat the Rice Krispie squares.
Yeah,
that's the secret.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you what, it was amazing because he went, right, Lee. I told him everything I was doing. He cut my gear by 2/3. So basically, I was on virtually nothing, you know, and it was real basic stuff. No GH, no insulin, just real basic compounds. But he had me doing 2 hours of cardio a day. But he had me on high carbs as well. So I was eating a lot of food on his protocol from a wide variety of sources. And with all the cardio, my metabolism was just getting so fast that, like, towards the end of the diet, so I was like on 400 or 500 grams of carbs a day, and losing weight on that as well, you know, because my metabolism just got so fast. And also he taught me a lot about the importance of presentation and posing. So I would drive down to Tenby every fortnight, check in with him, and then we do a workout, and then afterwards he would just make me pose and pose and pose and pose.
Because he was a great poser as well, wasn't he?
He was. He taught me all the little tricks. I mean, I taught a lot of myself just from watching the Olympias and standing in my bedroom and posing. But Neil's got a real good eye for detail, and he just, like, little tiny twists and angles and stuff like that. He totally changed the way that I presented my physique. And yeah, he's got a good eye for bodybuilding, you know, really good eye for bodybuilding. And
I don't think people know how good he was as a bodybuilder. Like, he was a pretty good bodybuilder in his day as well.
Yeah. Neil was one of the best, along with John Hodgson. Neil was one of the best conditioned bodybuilders in this country, you know, and he had an absolutely awesome shape. And he had an awesome approach to the sport as well. He was a very humble guy, and he was one of the hardest people that I've ever trained with. You know, he trained and took that training to failure and beyond. You know, so I appreciate, you know, what Neil did for me. If I always say, if it wasn't for Neil, then I would never have got to the Olympia. And the other thing as well was, obviously didn't have that much money at the time, but obviously a lot of money goes on gear and stuff like that. Neil cut my gear by 2/3, and it was costing me about 20 quid a week to do a show. You know what I mean? So it was like, hang on a sec, I'm looking the best that I've ever looked on the least amount of gear, and it's costing me about 20, 25 pounds a week. That was like, just...
You were saving money by being coached by him.
Exactly, yeah.
You were earning money from doing it.
Exactly.
That's almost the same as how it is. Oh, no, it's not.
No, it's very, very different these days, Dan.
A little bit.
Yeah.
It was just all about work ethic. Do you know what I mean? It was just constant. Just, I'm not saying people are lazy today, but I think back in the day, we sort of like prided ourselves on how tough we could beat ourselves up during a prep, how much we could suffer, how hungry we could go, how hard you could train, how many reps you could do with a certain weight. Whereas now, or not now, but I would say a few years ago, people were sort of like proud to say, oh, I don't have to do any cardio. Oh, I can get away with eating this. Oh, I can get away with eating that. That's not, to me, that's not bodybuilding, because I wanted to not just improve my physique, but also I wanted to improve my self-discipline.
I think it's also like a protection system for the youth, and it's not just a bodybuilding thing. It's just, if I don't try, then I can't really fail.
Yep.
Like, do you know what I mean? But I don't know, it's something very spiritual about being like, cool, I'm sat here, I'm hungry, I've slept for 5 hours, got to stare at the wall all night thinking about a potato. But fuck you.
Yeah.
You know, or even like, I used to enjoy just like, mates would be like, oh, we're all meeting up for a meal. So cool, I'll go. And I'll just fucking... Cool, just doing my thing. Being able to do that sort of stuff, like, probably not 4 weeks out, I would have just battered everyone. But yeah, like I remember the turning point of Instagram. It was a show off of things that you don't have to do.
Yeah.
And the one thing you can't do is out-drug, out-supplement, or out-think being a fucking pussy. And I always say that shit. It's like, you can't out-think being a pussy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and I remember I come to the seminar at your gym as well, and that was a common thing with John and Eddie was there as well, and Amph and Wendy actually, who are all like get nasty, and that's their like fuel. It's like, okay, it's working. It's kind of an indicator. Oh, I'm dead, so it must be working.
But the thing is like the way that I saw it is the more that I punished myself and the more that I suffered. When I woke up on a Sunday morning and I went to the mirror to check how I looked, I was like, yeah, this shit's working. And that puts a smile on my face. So when you're sat there starving, hungry, knackered, and too tired to even get up to go for a piss, that's when I would have a smile on my face. I was like, yeah, this is what this is the right way to do it. This is how I should be feeling. If I was feeling good dieting for a show, then I wasn't dieting for a show.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's a point. You shouldn't be dead from day one. I see a lot of people
No.
like going some. I've seen some mad diets and protocols recently where people are just like doing like stupid shit. You don't have to die straight away, but there's going to be a time where you literally, your soul will hover above you, and you have to just be like, oh hey, check in.
When you set up, when you've got your off season right, and you're going into your pre-contest right, you should not. I always say that you should be building your metabolic rate towards the show. So yeah, you are going to be starving, but you need to fuel that. So you need to put carbohydrates into the system to fuel that. Yeah, I was on 400 or 500 grams of carbs, you know, coming towards the end of a show, but I was still starving, but my metabolism was so fast. It was almost like every time I ate, I was just pouring petrol on a fire, and it was just like getting faster and faster and faster. So I'd be hungry the whole time, but I was hungry, but I wasn't lacking in nutrients. I know what you mean. Still having calories. I was still having protein and carbs, and you know, just I was hungry, but my metabolism was fast. And I think that's where a lot of people get things wrong. They absolutely destroy their metabolic rate to get ready for a show. Cut the carbs straight away, 2 hours of cardio straight away, training volume goes up, and then they just end up being small and soft on stage.
You run out of places to go.
Yeah.
I mean, something that Amph does with me, which is probably the similar, because I think he's cut from the same sort of cloth, is that manipulation. There isn't an off season because it's all prep, isn't it? It's just a different phase of we're not, but yeah, the response thing. A lot of people. I mean, I do a limited amount of coaching, but people want to take it like they want to go like just for a prep, and then I'm like, cool. What are you eating? Cool. So you're already eating to make you more ripped on nothing. You're going to get to a point when you're on 0 carbs, doing 2 hours of cardio, and then you're broken. It's fucked. The show's over.
Yeah.
And then they'll blame you.
And then they'll blame, it's my fault.
And then they blame the coach.
You didn't get me shredded in 10 weeks. It's like, yeah, it's not actually. How long did you prep?
I was always, I started taking, I didn't take my off season serious when I was younger, when I was an amateur. I did used to just bulk up. And I think the heaviest weight I ever got up to was like 18 stone 9 at 5'6".
Ooh.
Yeah.
Are there any pictures of that?
If I've got any pictures, I did upload a little clip of me doing some shoulder pressing at that weight on Instagram the other week, but I haven't got any pictures of that because it was like not pretty to look at.
You wouldn't want to take a picture of it, kind of thing.
You went full Lee Priest.
Yeah. But I didn't try to get up to 18 stone 9. It just happened. I was training hard, I was eating, and then all of a sudden I'm like,
yeah. But you had the genetics that allowed you to be able to strip that off. You got to play to your strengths. If you were naturally like a thick, I call them like seal skin. There's people who just can't quite. They can't be doing that.
And I was young as well, so I could allow my skin to go back and get it tight.
Yeah.
But after I went to that sort of weight, I was like, nah, I can't go that far out because at the end of the day, I'm a 90-kilo competitor. So why the fuck would I be going to sort of like 120 kilos or, it's ridiculous. And I always after that, I kept as soon as I turned pro, I was like, right, okay, I'm a bodybuilder full time now. And I did cardio in the off season. I made sure my body fat percentage stayed at a decent level. And I took things a lot more serious then, so that coming into a contest, I mean, I always started my preps at 20 weeks out. Now, that wasn't dieting for 20 weeks. I would do everything in like 4-week points. So the first 4 weeks would just be right, okay, you're eating clean. You're going to eat a lot of food, but you're eating clean. You're going to put in 10, 20 minutes of cardio a day, okay? And then that would remove that, that like shitty off-season water weight that you've been carrying. So that would remove about probably 20 pounds of fluid over a period of a month. And then I would take a look at my physique and then sort out my next 4 weeks. Set my goal, what do I need to lose? Where do I need to be at the end in terms of contest weight if I was making a weight class? And I would just basically do it in 4-week increments and see where I was at each time. But it wasn't the 20-week diet.
Yeah.
It was...
So the first 4 weeks were basically actually boosting your metabolic rate even further. Actually, probably like being accountable for eating more food initially.
Initially, yeah.
So was that to give you like more tools to play with, basically? Because
more tools to play with, but also mentally, I needed to say, right, okay, I'm in contest prep mode. Because I don't know about you, but when I was never nervous about getting on stage ever. And the only times I was nervous about bodybuilding would be those weeks before I started my prep, because I knew what was coming. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to communicate with people. I wanted to be by myself, and I needed to live a lifestyle that was just basically, selfish, totally selfish. And that was like, so that crossover point for the first 4 weeks was just to mentally get myself in that mindset. Before about 14 weeks out, that would be when everything would be like ripped down. Everything was to the gram. everything was just like bang on. It had to be bang on every single day, to the point where I had like OCD, where I had to make sure that that food was exactly 200 grams and not a gram over, a gram under. I had to wear certain types of clothing for certain workouts. I get up at the same time every single day, or try and get up even earlier than my competitors, thinking anything that I could do to get an edge over my competitors, what I thought they might not be doing, I would do. So if I thought my competitor was getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do cardio, I'd get up at 4 o'clock and do cardio. Just for that mental thing of thinking, I'm doing more than what everyone else is doing.
Yeah. Whilst the others sleep.
Yeah. And I used to go to my gym because when I was working on the doors, I used to finish at 2 o'clock or 2 o'clock in the morning, drive straight to my gym, absolutely fucking knackered and starving, and force myself to do an hour's cardio on the treadmill.
I remember doing that. Working the doors and bodybuilding used to be a staple, but it was fucking horrible. It was fucking horrible.
It was. But it was also a brain dead job where you didn't have to think about much, and if you had a good team, I could sit on a stool most of the night and do fuck all.
Yeah. And you don't have to be nice to anyone.
No, not at all. You don't have to talk to anyone because you can't hear what they're saying.
Yeah. So what was the highest or the furthest you got, and also what made you pack up?
So I think a lot of people are going to say, obviously I made it to the Olympia. I made it to the 202 Olympia 2009. That is pretty much every bodybuilder's dream, if you can stand on stage and say that you've done that.
Well, and people like nowadays say like, oh, I don't want to be pro. Oh, I wouldn't do it on points, or I wouldn't do it. It's like, fuck off. If you're a bodybuilder and you had even half a fucking gnat scrotum chance of getting on the Olympia stage, mate, I'd be fucking fingering dolphins' blowholes to get on there. And anyone who says they don't is full of shit.
Sonny, there's a great picture for you to edit there.
Damn with that.
It's like, where'd you come up with this shit?
I know, it just spirals out of his fucking head.
I walk around with this all day. You just get it for like an hour a week. Just for Gazy.
No, so in 2009, I decided, right, okay, I contacted Neil, and he goes, Lee, you can get to the Olympia. You can qualify for the Olympia. And I was like, do you really think so? He's like, yeah. I was like, okay. So I did. I think I started in the March, my prep, and obviously the shows were in July and August, but I had to lose muscle tissue to get down to that 202 class. So unfortunately, I had to do a really long diet, and then went out to Florida with John Hodgson. And on our first attempt, our first show, we qualified for the 202 Olympia together. David Henry come first, John come second, and then I come third. So that allowed us to qualify for the Olympia. The following week, we competed in a show in Texas, another 202 show. Again, I think there was about 20 odd competitors in that, and managed to turn the tables round. And John placed fourth and I placed third in that show. And that was it then. We were off to the Olympia. Was it the pinnacle of my career? I think, it was. Did it give me the satisfaction that I thought it was going to give me? I would say probably no. It wasn't a negative experience, but I think I was expecting too much from that show. But I was very proud of the fact that I set a goal to get to the Olympia, and I did it. But doing the Olympia itself wasn't the experience that I was expecting. It wasn't an anticlimax. It was probably, I think that my mindset was, I'm not going to win the Olympia. I felt like I was there competing more as a fan than a competitor, because it was quite an overwhelming experience to be in that show that you've been training your whole life for.
Okay, so what was your favorite show, or the one that, like, you know, gave you the biggest kick, or whatever, or delivered?
I would say it would have been that Holland show, where, you know, I'm getting comparisons with guys that I never thought I was going to get comparisons with, and I was in my best ever condition. I was just bone dry. I competed in the Austrian show. It was an Austrian show, Grand Prix show, on the Friday night. So I competed in that. I think I might come 11th in that. And that, again, that was a big lineup. Flew home from Austria to Birmingham Airport, drove to Gloucester, got some food, got back in my car, drove back to Birmingham Airport, flew to Holland, and, you know, and then when I got to Holland, I was just shredded. I was just so dry and gnarly looking, man. I was exhausted, but I looked in the mirror. I was like, "This is crazy," and I even got a compliment from the head judge, Steve Weinberger. Yeah, I got a compliment from him, and to get a compliment off him is a difficult thing to do. You know, he doesn't say too many things to them. So then I knew I looked good, and then when I was announced in the top 6 with Jay and Ronnie, I was like, fair play. You know, a dosser from Gloucester, you know, is like competing against some of the best guys in the world at bodybuilding. So yeah, that was
Some of the best guys ever.
Yeah.
Did you get a call out with those two then? Were you in?
I didn't get a call out with Ronnie and Jay. No, I got a call out with, like, not the top 3, but the second top 3, like with Eddie, Hidegami, Yamagishi, and I can't remember the other guy.
Because these days they might have pulled out a top 6, so you were pretty unlucky that you didn't get in that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't get a comparison with Jay, but that would have been good, you know. But there was like 22 people in that show. It was a big show, so I was like, yeah, that's good.
There was one thing I wanted to ask, which is quite prevalent to me. Like, obviously 2009 was my first show, and that was when you were, like, you know, one of the main guys in the UK, and you were on everything. And then obviously a few years later, I can't remember how long after, you tore your pec. I tore my pec actually in 2010, believe it or not. Second year of competing, and I've competed in like 30 shows since with my tear, obviously limiting my ability to compete, but or even make progress. Sorry, in the shows and whatever. So is that fundamentally the reason why you gave up?
No, if you remember, I competed after I tore my pec.
Yeah, no, I remember you competed, and it still, to be honest with you, it didn't look that bad. But I wasn't sure if, you know, obviously if you weren't getting the results you thought you should have been having, but the pec was holding you back, or what?
What happened was, after the Olympia, I didn't train for 7 months. I was so physically and mentally burnt out, I just couldn't face going into the gym. So I knew I needed a rest, and I knew I needed a break. I just had no motivation. I was like, I think with every massive high in life, becomes a massive low, and sort of like I was riding that wave. And then after the Olympia was done and dusted, it's like, at the end of the day, no one really gives a shit if you compete at the Olympia, or, you know, or friends and stuff like that. It was like,
we do.
I know, but like, it was like, in a way, I suppose that was my ego. I was thinking that I've done the Olympia. I'm Lee Powell. I'm something special.
Yeah.
Where, no, I wasn't. That was just my ego talking. I was still Lee Powell, training in Gloucester, and just a regular guy. I wasn't anything special. So I was pretty burnt out after that show, and started training again in about 2011, I think it was. Started training, and again, I was about 35, 36 at that point in time. So that's the prime age for your injuries to start, and your body start falling apart. Wow.
Oh, great.
I'm holding on.
Well, for me, strength come back super quick. Size come back super quick. Benching full plates, bang. Rip my pec.
You don't even have to ask how you've done it.
I know.
Don't even have to ask.
So, and as I stood up, my sort of like pec was hanging out of my chest, and I was like, oh shit. And I actually said to my training partner, I said, it's over. And then I sort of like, I was in a bit of state of shock, went to the hospital, they didn't do anything. And then I spoke to some guys who had pec tears, and they said, Lee, whatever you do, just get it fixed. Go, even if you never compete again, get surgery on it and get it fixed. Because they'd all, the guys who hadn't had surgery, they did regret it afterwards. Yeah, right.
Well, I had surgery, but I had the NHS. Basically, I got rushed through, and they were treating me like, you know, pretty quickly. They asked me the question, have you ever done anabolic steroids? And naively, I was only young, and I was like, yes. And they were like, oh, well, you're going to have to leave, and we'll make an appointment for an MRI. And it took them 14 days just to do the MRI. And then another, like, 14 days later, they did the surgery. So there was no chance of reattaching that tendon successfully. So I was pretty fucked, to be fair.
Yeah, what I did, I went to my doctor. She said, oh, it looks okay to me. I was like, you haven't got a clue what you're looking at. So I went straight to the local private hospital, seen the sports doctor there, got an MRI scan. He identified the type of tear that it was. It was a muscular tendon tear, so it's probably the worst tear that you could have. You know, the best tear you can have is when the tendon just comes completely off. Mine was the actual muscle to the tendon that come off. You know, so that's pretty hard to fix. And he gave me a guy's number called Dr. Len Funk. I don't know if anyone of you heard of him. He's dealt with a lot of shoulder injuries, and Ernie Taylor's used to see him. He's actually called the Shoulder Doc online. Yeah. Went and seen him, booked me in, had my surgery, reattached it, and that was like in the April, and then a year from that, I was stood on stage at the FIBO show competing in the open class. You know, I thought to myself, right, okay, I've got an injury. I've never had an injury before, not one injury the whole time I was competing. And I thought to myself, oh, I've got a nice, another challenge here. Let's see if I can overcome this injury, get back on stage and be competitive. And that's exactly what I did. So I just focused on that 12 months training. Again, my focus come back, and absolutely loved training for those shows. Again, you know, got my passion back for the sport. And then I competed for three years in a row after that. And I managed to make the top 6 in the Prague show. So I was pretty happy with that. Coming from a pec tear to placing and being competitive again. But Father Time takes over, and the body doesn't work like it used to. And what was happening, I think the peak of my physique was at the Olympia at 35 years of age. And I think for me, as I competed in those 3 years, especially with the injury, once you've had that injury, it's never the same again. And each show I did, I didn't feel like I was improving. I wasn't getting better each time that I improved. And also, when you've done so many shows and so many diets, and you know when you wake up in the morning what you're going to look like, it sort of like ruins the surprise. You know? Whereas when you're getting better and better, when you wake up in the morning, you can't wait to get to that mirror. Whereas for me, it got to the point where I knew exactly what I was going to weigh. I knew exactly what striation or vein was going to be popping out on that day. And I just sort of like lost that element of surprise. And I was like, I know what to expect now. And it became a little bit boring then.
Nailing it was boring. I've nailed it. Boring.
Do you know when you tore your pec? Did it bruise badly?
Yeah.
Mine was like from wrist to wrist. Like,
yeah, it's just started there, and then throughout the week it went all the way down my arm. Yeah.
Gruesome.
Mine was like a wet rag. It's just like,
yeah, exactly the same.
This is enough talking from you two.
Yeah, now. my spotters thought my t-shirt ripped.
This is.
Oh.
I've had to do flat bench whilst kind of on the lockdown workouts, and I've put it like right at the end of my push workout, so that like I'm as weak as I possibly can be. Like everything before, like flies, just to try and like do it when it's to avoid doing mad
when it's
poundage.
Yeah, doing it when it's most safe. So that's how I train now. I put a lot of my isolation work in the beginning of the workout, and then do the compounds at the end.
Yeah, I've been doing that for a while for a safety kind of reasons, especially. Flat bench is just. I did tear my pec, nothing like that, but it was a little like, hey.
Yeah, it's a warning.
Hey, maybe don't do this.
And I think when I did get my injury, that's when I realised I wasn't Superman. I was just a human being, you know. Yeah. And that was like a bit of a kick up the ass, because I don't know about you guys, but when I was in full swing with my weight training and my bodybuilding, I felt invincible, absolutely invincible.
Yeah,
like I could do anything, you know. And go on.
Well, like having springy tendons and stuff, I do remember even just working the doors or whatever, just be like, I'll just run through these walls and like, I'll just like throw out 20 people at a time and fucking just do a Hadouken like on Street Fighter if I need to. And I just remember, especially when there was Tren involved.
Oh, right.
I've never been that privileged. I've always been injury prone. Do you know, if I push the envelope just a little bit too much, shit goes wrong. So I have to. Mine's like, you know, progressive overload and stuff like that. For me, is you have to tread very carefully. For me, if I logbook things and I try and beat numbers, there's only got to be one of the conditions that are wrong. Like I haven't drunk enough water that day, or you know, things I didn't get enough sleep, and bang, something will tear.
Yeah, I've been touch wood, like reasonably lucky. I've torn like loads of stuff, but yeah, it was usually like something stupid. But I remember, walking into the gym and not even having to think about how I was going to lift something or bracing myself in a certain way, or like just being like, you know, like shouting at the bar, fucking giving it headbutts. I'm like, like, you know, not really having to work. And now I'm like, knee's a bit funny. I want to take it a bit slow in case one of my kneecaps flies off into the wall or something. Like, yeah, it is something.
The thing is, when you get injuries and you get some aches and pains, your mind, when you're training, your mind is focused more on that than the actual workout itself.
Yeah.
You know, and that definitely affects the intensity of the workout.
Yeah, of course.
Whereas, like when you're, like you say, when your tendons are feeling good and your body's working good, you haven't got that in the back of your mind, so you can actually release more into that set and basically take it to failure and beyond.
Yeah, because it's not really like a pain thing. Like the pain thing's like easy. It's just like your body will. There's a different types of pain, isn't there? And there's certain pains that your body will avoid doing. And if I've got a knee issue which kind of comes and goes, or I've tendonitis and all in my elbow, you can just feel the center of gravity. Just your body just shifts it, even just like an inch. You know,
it pisses you off and makes you angry, because you're like thinking, for fuck's sake, I want to be able to train, but I can't, because I'm thinking more about the pain or my kneecap coming off than I am about doing the set properly.
Yeah. I think I'm getting to the age where I'm just like, if it comes off, it comes off. Fuck it.
I think you should. I think as you get older, though, you should adapt your training to make it safer. I don't think it has to be. I watched Leroy's podcast yesterday, and you know, I couldn't train like I trained like that when I was younger, but I couldn't train how he and Anth trains like that now. I couldn't do it because everything would just be snapping on me.
Yeah, I mean, Leroy's made of some different shit.
Yeah,
like, he's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Like, even I remember when I first went and like trained with him, and he's like over 50 or whatever, and like his he was just smashing everyone. Like, it was fucking nuts. And doing decent weight, you know, leg press fucking 14 plates aside, sort of like as if it was like nothing. But yeah, I don't think I'll be training when I'm 50. I'll just take up darts and beer.
Being alive at 50 would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I'd make it this far, to be honest.
I think bodybuilding is one of the hardest sports to walk away from, though. You know, it's really, because you carry this physique with you 24/7, and to let that go is quite demoralizing.
So when you're at your like level as well, and like even competing just at all, is like you talked about the up and the down and stuff like that, and then you know anyone who has a retirement age, you know you've hyper focused on this one thing, and then the thing's not there. You know, it happens with Olympic athletes. It happens to like gymnastic girls at like 16.
Yeah.
You know, and they fall into huge depression states and stuff like that because you have this one thing, and then it's not there, and it's like, fuck, how do I refocus that energy somewhere else? Because you have this burning thing, which is what made you successful in what you were doing, which probably could have been applied elsewhere, made you successful at something else.
Yeah.
But then it's a little bit later, and you're like, okay, where do I put it?
Yeah, you're left with a big vacuum to fill.
You
know?
One of my fears is just being the guy in the gym that's still trying, but just getting worse. Yeah. And I've always said, I just hope someone gives me a whisper in the ear and just goes, hey, just maybe do something else.
How's that going to work?
I don't think you need to have anyone whisper that in your ear. You'll know yourself.
How's that going to work, though, Dan? Because
some people don't.
You're never going to be the guy who doesn't go balls out in the gym. So will you just stop?
I think I'd just find something else. I don't know. Like, find something else that, fuck knows, mate. It's making me feel a bit down, to be honest. Like, fuck.
How old are you now, Dan?
I'm 36.
Okay, so you're still young, and if you do things right, you can still enjoy, competing well into your 40s.
Yeah, so that's my plan. In my head, it's like, because I started quite late because my childhood was pretty fucking weird.
Yeah.
And I was just a fucking nutter. And
was.
Naughty. So in my head, I'm like, it's time given. So I'm like, because I've been only like really doing it like 10 years, I feel like maybe I'm okay for a little bit.
Because your health was perfect before bodybuilding as well.
Mate, my health was sick, mate. My lung capacity, literally, I could do like a gram like up each nostril, like in like one gut, sick.
It's not like a fuse, right? Like Dan thinks that his bodybuilding fuse is there, but what he doesn't realize is his social activities, earlier parts of his life has put him there. He's actually got this much left.
It's actually like
it's crossing.
I'm in negative equity. One thing I did want to ask, Lee, because you touched a little bit on using PEDs and that, and how you were quite light on the use, and we like to get an insight into like people, what they were using, because there wasn't so much stuff around, and like kind of the sort of doses. So I don't know whether you're prepared to actually break it down for us.
Yep. And there's not a lot to break down, to be honest. So my off-season stack for probably most of my career was, I think the most I ever took was 750 milligrams of test a week. 300 milligrams of Deca, and then about 30 to 40 milligrams of Dianabol and some Novadex. And that was my go-to off-season stack most of the year. I didn't have a lot of money when I first started, so I couldn't afford it, things like growth and stuff like that. And the years that I did get my best placings was when I took my lowest doses of steroids. So that would have been my off-season stack. Pre-contest, I mean, for example, I won the British Championships on 300 milligrams of, I don't know if you remember Viramone, testosterone propionate. Okay, so it's 300 milligrams of testosterone propionate a week and 300 milligrams of Winstrol per week. And then your normal fat burners, your Clen, a little bit of T3. So that was on 600 milligrams of gear per week that I won the British Championships on. And then I sort of like carried that through to my pro career, and obviously met Neil, and he lowered things even more. But we just added things like Primobolan, Winstrol, testosterone propionate.
When you could actually get real Primo.
Yeah. Not like the Primo you see these days.
Yeah. Yes, the gear was all pharmaceutical. It was all come from chemists and stuff like that. So yeah, the quality was bang on. So you knew exactly what you were taking. But yeah, so I didn't. My gear stacks were really basic and really cheap, to be honest.
But based on that as well, I'd like to say that anybody watching this, Winstrol these days, don't even take the risk of injecting that. Back then, probably a lot safer. These days, it's #1 for abscess.
Yeah, I got an abscess in my shoulder back in 2007, 2008. I put a shot of Winstrol on my shoulder, and I was in hospital for a week and had 3 operations.
Yeah, it's because it's water-based and just broke down into the water, innit?
So that's not something that I would ever mess with again.
Yeah, I don't play around with the Milky Doom liquid.
Just drink it.
Yeah, I mean, people have. Yeah,
I thought when I was younger, when I first started competing, I thought I was hardcore as fuck. Like before bed every night, I'd have like a shaker with some BCAAs, and I'd put a shot of Winstrol in it, and I'd drink it thinking I was hardcore.
That's something that my mind can get behind. I don't know why. Like that would make I might start doing that anyway, just to make it feel cool. Like
love drugs and
was there a time, Lee, where you experimented with more to like more? Someone was like, more is more. Maybe I'll try it, and it just didn't pan out.
So I don't know if you remember a guy called Paul Borison. Do you remember Paul Borison? Okay. You all need to learn your bodybuilding history.
No, mate, I'm embarrassed. I'm not gonna lie. I thought about just lying and be like, yeah, best mate.
Paul Borison was the guy behind CMP.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so he was in business with Kerry Case.
Got you.
Okay, and he's wrote a few books on steroids. And I did work with him for a little while back in the late 90s. And he's dead now, by the way. But he did advocate some sort of crazy stacks. So I think the craziest stack I ever did, I never did it again and never would do it again, was a 30-day stack. It was 500 milligrams of SUST a day for the first 10 days. And then 400 milligrams of Deca for 10 days. And then 300 milligrams of Primo for 10 days. And it was using the long-acting insulin as well.
Yeah.
And by the end of that 30 days, my blood pressure was so high, I was getting nosebleeds. I was absolutely useless, and I thought I can't do this. So never ever did that again.
Is there such a thing as the steroid flu then? Because I heard at those sort of dosages you get flu-like symptoms.
Yeah, I felt like absolute shit the whole time, basically. It was just I was just toxic. It was just too much gear in my system, you know. I felt like crap, and I realized I didn't need to be taking that sort of dose. But
if it's impacting your training and your mentality and stuff like that, you may as well do fucking nothing.
Yeah, because all I was doing was sleeping.
Yeah,
I just felt tired all the time, and training was shit. So I was like, okay, I like to think I'm pretty intelligent. I don't think that's not the route that I want to go down, and also the cost of doing things like that isn't good.
Do you reckon that's why in the US they just started doing Nubane?
What they've just started doing Nubane?
No, like in like the early days when the cycles were really high, there was like an epidemic of Nubane users in like Gold's Gym and stuff.
Yeah, and in this country as well.
Yeah, I mean, no one really talks about it in this country.
Yeah, well, it was quite right. It was quite rife back in the early 90s. I know a lot of bodybuilders that succumbed to Nubane because I think it was Dan Chain promoted it as it would lower your cortisol levels.
Fuck.
Yeah, so it was like you could take your and obviously you got the pain relief from it as well, so that you could train him more intensely.
That's fucking amazing.
But all it ended up doing was turning a lot of bodybuilders into drug addicts.
Yeah,
you know, not a good drug at all.
Well, there was the Craig Titus, didn't he? He started just doing crystal meth, and then he.
No, sorry, my mum's just come in.
Hi, Mum.
I'm still doing this. I'm still doing this. Right. She's just trying to bring my dog back.
I thought she was giving you a row for talking about.
Giving a row about steroids.
Oh, no, she's looking after my little Staffy, my Staffy Bull Terrier.
Oh, bless. Did we have any questions quickly for Lee off the question panel before
I just wanted to touch on a subject of when you were obviously suffering from depression.
Yeah.
Is it something you still suffer from now? Is it still in sort of like there, or is it completely detached away from you?
So long as I'm training and I would say it's always going to be biting at your heels.
Yeah.
You know, so some days I have good days, some days I have bad days, but mostly I have good days because I've got a lovely wife, a lovely son, a lovely life. I'm very, very happy in my life, you know, and I think you got to remember back in the 80s when I lost my brother, there was no grief counselling, or the word mental health didn't exist. So at the age of 10, I had to sort of process the grief and the death of my brother throughout my teenage years. And that's like 36 years ago now. And I've processed that information to the point where sort of like, I mean, when you do lose a sibling or a family member, you go through different stages, and I've been through all those stages. I know that I don't get depressed about the death of my brother anymore, you know, because I know one day hopefully I'm going to see him again, and I think as well, if it hadn't have been for the death of my brother, then I might not have had the success of my bodybuilding career. So I channeled that energy into a positive outlet, and so that's what I try and do all the time now. I always try and see the positive in things. So yeah, but I think it's always going to be nipping at your heels, but I don't suffer from depression, like not the bad depression that I had when I was a teenager.
Yeah, of course. That's good, just because we have obviously few people who mess me through with the podcast and stuff. Obviously, knowing how do we get on with our day to day, especially when the the time we are at the moment. And I always say the same thing. It's just bodybuilding has always been there for me. Yeah. I'm not going to ever stop it, whether the times now we got is trying to take it away from us or not. Like, you still got to push forward. So
and the one thing that you can always rely on is the gym. The bench press is always going to be there. The squat rack's always going to be there. 500 pounds on a bar is always going to be there, and the weights will never ever cheat on you or let you down. They're always going to be there,
unless it's a flat bench press.
Unless it's a flat bench press, but
try to avoid that.
try to avoid it, but again, I turn that into a positive. I thought I always say that tearing my pec was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because it gave me a recharged energy to pursue another goal. You know, and see if I could get back on stage.
It wasn't the best thing to happen to you, Johnny, was it?
No, I say it is, because I'd probably be dead now, because I have such an addictive personality that I'd have been so guns blazing on going pro that it was a blessing in disguise, really.
That's the way you've got to look at it, like that. Definitely.
The thing is, currently is obviously the gym is always there. Isn't the case at the moment. I think a lot of people that had that as an outlet and as a tool are really struggling like now, because I mean there's a common theme with most of the people that we have on here, and that training to want to win a show or training to like look good isn't enough to be a successful bodybuilder. Everyone's got like a story of like an outlet. It's always not always, but most of the time it's always got a deeper meaning to people, and so many people utilize the gym. I'm not going to say like they're essential, open the gyms or whatever. Like, I'm not a pandemic fucking expert, I'm not getting into that. But yeah, like the people that have had great success through bodybuilding have like needed it. And now obviously for people that maybe they're not successful or whatever, that need it now, like don't have it, and it's almost like they're getting that downward turn, and the direction, the devil makes work for idle hands and minds, and people are just fucking spinning. So I hope this shit fucks off pretty soon. I mean, I don't have access to a gym. I have a container, and I'm very happy with that. I'm pleased that I have something to do with that, but
But
yeah, it is funny how it's a common thing for. I'm sure the guys will agree. Most people, it's not just like, well, I saw a magazine and wanted to be ripped.
Yeah, it's a lot more than that. Yeah. But I think like some people are like, oh yeah, you can go out for a run, you can go out for a walk, you can get your exercise that way. No, I'm not a runner. I'm not a cyclist. For me, I need to be in the gym. I think there is something special that happens when you pick a barbell up or a dumbbell up. Something connects you to mentally, physically, spiritually, and something, I don't know, for me, I would say weight training is the best antidepressant that you can.
Running is boring as shit.
I fucking hate running. You get exactly out of it as you put in, and that's too much.
I can't imagine that sight, Dan, I'll be honest.
Getting a fucking bicycle, it's like, you get a little bit more, bang for your buck there. I ran for a bus in '95, and that was enough.
95. That made you like 8.
Yeah, well, there's still buses then. Horse and cart.
I bet you'd run for a fucking ice cream van.
I run my mouth. I'm not very good with lactose. I'll be running the toilet if I had an ice cream. Do we have any more questions? Could we have wonderfully run into that zone?
Yeah,
and spooning chicken and rice into his face or something.
Yeah, the questions I've had are not worth asking. They're all pathetic attempts at questions, stuff that I wouldn't even dare ask you, Lee. So I'm gonna leave my questions at that, I think.
Well, I'm super stoked at the insight. It's been great. What we ask people to do before they leave, and this is actually a lot fucking harder, and loads of people have answered them really shit. So there's like no pressure, but just like 5 top tips or hindsight, or I've got this. I don't know.
What's this one? Where are you chucking this one in?
Well, because it was
for you.
Yeah, it's phones for you. I'm trying to adapt it. 5 questions for you.
5 facts for you.
Yeah, there you go.
5 top tips over the phone.
Yeah, so like, or like, some hindsight shit, because hindsight's easy for people that have been there. But obviously for us mere mortals, we just up the trend.
Yeah. Right. So 5 top tips. I would say and it's going to be really cheesy, but number 1 is, if you're going to take this shit serious, you need to believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, you can't expect anyone to believe in you. And as soon as I started adopting that attitude, things started happening, and just simple things like writing down, like, I'm going to be British champion. I'm going to be on stage at the Olympia. I'm going to look a certain way. So I used to write a lot of stuff down, and I used to keep diaries and just diaries of thoughts and feelings. And so, yeah, you need to really have a really strong belief that you can, so long as you're realistic with yourself, that you can achieve your goal. If you're, if you haven't got the genetics for the sport and you want to be Mr. Olympia, then there's probably a good chance that that's not going to happen. So, and set small goals, achievable goals. So don't say, I want to turn pro, and you've only just started training. Say, I want to see what I look like with a set of abs. I want to see what I look like stood on a bodybuilding stage, and each time you do that, you'll get your answers, and then you'll also get confirmation from other people as well, to say, like I had, like people used to say, Lee, you're going to be British champion. At that point in time, I was like, really? And then once I started believing it, it was like, okay, it's just a process I need to go through, and it's going to happen. So yeah, that would be my first tip.
People are they were realer with each other, like then as well. And so people's advice was worth something. Like, people just suck each other off just relentlessly, like the smoke blowing facilities. It's hard to differentiate, not from my perspective, because I don't fucking talk to anyone, but like, like a relationship with like Amph is really good because there's no smoke going on. But it's hard to decipher, because if you say anything negative, even if it's constructively like based, you're seen as just a negative cunt, and you should only surround yourself with positive people. And
well, I've got a good story about being honest, and I don't know if you remember a guy from Gloucester. His name was Richard Farmer, and he won the British Championships at the age of 22. I think he was like one of the youngest people apart from Ian Harrison. And he's like a famous sort of like guy from Gloucester. So I was dieting for a show, and I was thinking that I was looking okay. And this guy used to get absolutely shredded. And so I stripped off one day in the gym, and he had a look at me, and I went through all my poses, core turns, thinking, oh yeah, he's going to say something positive. And he just put his hand on his face like that, and he just went, basically, you're a fat cunt. Right? That was the best thing that he could have said to me at that point in time, because I thought I was looking okay. He called me a fat cunt, and that was it. I had about 6 weeks left of prep, and I just went full out and got absolutely shredded. And he come and watched the show, and he stood up in the audience, and he actually said, that guy's going to be better than I ever was. And that was, like, again, a massive compliment from a guy that was 22 years old. He won the British Championships and won his pro card. You know,
I mean, that's the sort of thing is that people aren't ready to take that. And sometimes you say things to drive people,
yeah,
but also to like lay it out. It's not always like giving someone feedback, even like that. He didn't mean that as a negative. He wanted to then later congratulate you on actually. I mean, you might have folded and whatever, and then the congratulations would have never happened.
Exactly.
He would have wanted you to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and so, you know, people get a little bit confused about where this information's leading. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, no one wants to set anyone up to fail generally, but sometimes just be going, look, mate, you fucking you're a pussy, sort your shit out.
There's another thing, right? You mentioned the being realistic with your goals and stuff. There was this kid that followed me on Instagram. I can't remember his username. This was last week. It said in his bio, aspiring bodybuilder, the goal is the Olympia. And this kid, I looked through his thing. There's more muscle on a chicken. And I swear he'd never competed, and that was his bio. I literally had to block him.
Yeah. I've known loads of guys that have trained in my gym that have said exactly the same thing. They haven't even done a show, and they're talking about pro cards and stuff like that. You know?
It is nuts, but is it just because they think they're close? Like, maybe it looks closer than it is with the right filter or whatever. Maybe it looks closer, but until you dip your toe in and really stand on stage and go, fuck.
Yeah, and they've got people telling them how good they are as well.
That's the thing. The big fish, small pond.
There's no excuses anymore, though. Like back in the day when we first started bodybuilding, like it was like
back in the day.
They in the local town, it was probably just like, you know, nobody in shape, so everybody thought they looked great. So everybody thought, yeah, go do a show. But then they turn up and look like fucking idiots. But there's no excuses these days, is there?
Because of Instagram, but then as well there's the other dilution of the federations and stuff like that. Anyway, sorry, we digress. I love the story, and I'd much rather surround myself with people that tell me
you're a cunt.
I'm a cunt. Yeah,
that's why you come on here, Dan.
That's why I'm here, to call you all cunts.
Exactly.
But you know, like, do you know what I mean? There's so, and also like if someone's real with you and then they tell you, okay, now you're in, then it means something, doesn't it? If someone's just there just all the time, how do you know like when it is good?
I'm so repeating that. That's going in the intro.
Oh, fuck's sake.
Dan McNabb Valentine's special.
Yeah. So number 4, sorry, Lee.
Number 3.
Number 3. What was 4?
We haven't
got the 4.
How can it be?
We're going 1. We're going 1 to 5.
Number 3, right, would be being bit like what Dorian Yates said once. He said if he wanted to climb Mount Everest, he wouldn't go to his local guy at the climbing centre. He'd go and seek out the advice from a guy who's actually climbed Mount Everest and been there and done it. And I think that's what a lot of people don't do now. They don't go to those people who've had the experience. Whereas I've done it. You're doing it now, Dan. You know, with AMP. You want to learn from people that have actually walked that walk and been on that journey, so that they can understand what you're going through, and guide you in the right direction. Because I think there are a lot of coaches out there now that just don't have the experience, or you know, of getting ripped many times, of the mental aspect of the diet and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say definitely seek out those that have been on that journey before you. And
so
now,
you're saying people who've competed once shouldn't coach people?
yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, if you've done one, I mean, there's plenty of guys that have done one show and then they're an online coach, which I think that's a disservice to if they do get clients, because especially if they haven't like brought the goods to the table and they're not that great, I don't think they should be advising, you know, other people at that point in their career. They need to get some experience and go through the process quite a few times themselves, you know. But there's you know, there's so many online coaches now that haven't even stepped on stage.
Yeah, I mean, there's different levels. Like if you've done one show and you're doing lifestyle clients for like healthy living and stuff, then you're like, you know, you're at the qualification level for that. It's the same with like teaching. You always need a qualification, at least one stage higher. If you're teaching degree, you need a master's. If you're teaching level 3, you need you need a degree. Well, preferably and a master's. Like that makes sense, that hierarchy. But yeah, people have done one show with the UFF squeezy pleasy Miami Wankstain, like, you know, shouldn't be advising people on how to do stuff. And I think it's, yeah, if you want to learn to drive, you'd go to driver, wouldn't you? Yeah, so you wouldn't go to a driving instructor.
Yeah.
You know, if you wanted to do racing. Yeah, solid.
So number 4, most people don't give it long enough. I think it takes about 10 years to really fully develop your physique to its maximum potential. And I've noticed, I've trained a lot of people and seen a lot of people come in and out of my gym. And the average lifespan for a competitive bodybuilder is 3 years. 1 year would be, the first year is always the best year because it's all brand new, and you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain, because no matter what, so long as you do everything properly, you're going to look the best that you've ever looked at that point in time, regardless of where you place. The worst thing to do is for someone to actually win their first show, I think, as well.
I've always said that.
And then the second year, obviously, you want to get a place in and you want to make some improvements, and it's going to require a little bit more sacrifice. And you might get a decent place in, but you've had to sacrifice a bit more to get there. Now, in your third year, when you compete, you want to be thinking about maybe getting a trophy or a top 3 place in. And this is the bit where most people, I've noticed, they don't get the result that they want. And they say to me, Lee, it's cost me this much money. I've missed out on this holiday. I've missed out on this wedding. I don't think it's worth it. So they quit on that. Most people quit on that 3-year mark, because at the end of the day, it takes 10 years at least to become good. And most people nowadays don't want to put in that amount of time into one thing, you know.
Well, I mean, to be good at any. That's the thing. To be good at anything, you've got to put your 10,000 hours in. Like whether it's being an instrumentalist or a singer or good, you know, anything. Like, you know, Instagram and all that's designed to make you think that it happens fast.
Yeah.
But anyone who's good at fucking anything has done 10 years of graft.
Well, I'm 12 years in, Lee. I'm still waiting patiently.
Yeah, you've got to be patient. #blessed.
But let's face it as well. Bodybuilding is boring as shit, isn't it? In terms of the lifestyle, It's Groundhog Day every single day. And I always say, if you're good at being bored, you'll make a good bodybuilder, you know. And I absolutely loved the lifestyle when I was competing of doing the same thing every day, eating the same food every day. I absolutely loved that. But to most people, they're like, how can you do that? That's so boring. But
I needed it. Yeah. I needed it and I loved it. I'm like scramble egg fucking potato brain or 100% in. And pretty much from my first show, I've tracked everything I fucking put in my face, and the structure like brought like everything else into perspective, and it made me good at other stuff. I was like, I can structure this, and now around that I can structure, you know, since I started bodybuilding, like from like didn't go to school or whatever, I was able to like do education, do a degree and an MA, and like from bodybuilding, that bodybuilding taught me like that. And so I love it when people say, oh, well, what do you want to do, you know, like this and this. I want to do the same shit every day and then die.
Yep, that's exactly
what I want. Just no, like, and I was just like, that's fucking nuts. And I was like, oh, just calm, just monotonous.
But if you look at any athlete, that's the way that they live their life. They just dedicate it to one thing, and they don't let anything else in, you know.
Yeah.
So
but you gotta have some dogs though.
Yes.
You gotta have dogs.
It's one thing I'm missing. I need a dog.
Yeah, you do need a dog. You could get a hamster. You know, start small.
Hamster's not the same. It's not the same. Can't
you
walking down the street with a hamster and a lead.
The leads don't fit properly, and they don't fetch good stuff.
Or a lace.
Yeah, it's possible. We got one more?
Yeah. The last one I would say is enjoy it while you can. Because at the end of the day, it's like my wife said to me when I was coming out of the sport, and I thought when I was in it, I thought I was going to be doing it forever. It would last forever, but it doesn't. There's, you know, my wife said, you do realize that it's going to come to an end one day. And I was like, no, I didn't realize that. So I would say to you, you're all young lads, enjoy the sport while you can. Enjoy every single moment, even the pain of the dieting, the pain of the training. Just really appreciate it, because there will come a day when you can't do the and you probably won't want to be eating those foods that you're eating now. You know, you'll become a normal person at some point. You know, apart from Dan. Or I think just what happens when you get a little bit older, you sort of like start to enjoy the finer things in life. You know, so you might want to go out for a meal, you know, 2-3 times a week, or you might want to have a beer with your mates and just stuff like that, and do normal things. And that's where I'm at the moment. My latest obsession is carp fishing. I'm absolutely obsessed with that. So I spend all my time doing that. I still train, but with regards to the nutritional side of things, I just eat basically what I want when I want. You know, I can't be asked with that side of things anymore. So just enjoy it. Yeah. It's an amazing sport, and I think you know, if you can live your life as a bodybuilder, you're a very, very lucky person.
Yeah, it shouldn't feel like a chore.
No.
That's what I get. A lot of people. It's like, oh, but I don't want to. And I was like, if it's feeling like a chore already, it's not for you. I mean, go to the gym, feel good, leave the gym, eat some, you know, go to McDonald's, whatever, enjoy training. You can still just have training. It's still a wonderful tool for loads of things. Exactly. But people come to me, I want to do a show, I want to be a champion. And then I show them just even a snippet of what that looks like. And they're like, oh, it's really hard. I don't like it. I don't want to. One guy said to me, there's a reason that I haven't come to do the PT sessions with you. And it's because they're really hard. And I was like, I don't know what to say to that. Like, I mean, fine, but it's probably not for you.
No.
You know, and I've never, obviously there's times in the diet, isn't there, when you're thinking, what the fuck am I doing? Like,
Yeah.
what am I doing? Like, everyone's like sees you in the street and they're like, "Are you okay?" Because they think you're dying of cancer because your like face has fallen off. And
But
like,
aren't you happy when you get those?
yeah, I fucking love it.
Yeah.
Yes, I wear my death face. I clean shave when I've got the death face.
Yeah.
So like, I love a death face. Yeah, I can't even remember where I was fucking going with that. But yeah, it shouldn't be a like a chore. And if it's a chore early, just enjoy the gym for what it is and do the normal stuff.
Yeah.
Most people that we speak to on here as well never like when I want to do the shows. I think people see the shows and they think they're glitzy and glamorous and stuff like this. When I put some posts up, most shows are going to be you lying on a bin bag for 10 hours, like, you know, and that's pretty much all the way up. Like,
I think that's what I was expecting from the Olympia. I was expected to be like treated like royalty, and you weren't. You were just treated like cattle. And it was just hanging around for hours and hours and hours, not knowing when you're going to go on stage. So yeah, the competitive side is pretty boring, but that moment that you walk out on stage and you walk out a better version, that's the reward in itself. And when people say, "Fucking hell, what did you do?" You know, that was the feeling that I liked.
Those 5 were actually fucking decent. He's a quick-witted man, this guy. Usually they break, and then but yeah, it's been wicked. What an excellent insight. I really appreciate you coming out for us and sharing like some of the harder stuff as well. I think people will take off from that.
Much appreciated, Lee.
Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate that. Just
been a privilege, brother.
People enjoy it.
Yeah.
Thanks, mate. And I'll be in touch. I need to come and visit when they're open.
Definitely, because you're only down the road, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Not far. Yeah.
We'll do a Bash Bros visit.
How about that? You get the whole crew.
Yes.
That sounds like a
Just
plan.
make sure I'm as big as I can be when Dan's dieting, so that he looks small.
Yeah, same.
I
He's still look bigger than me, even dieting down.
I would have to actually be dying of cancer for that.
On that bombshell.
On that bombshell. Big love. Thanks again, Lee.
Thanks,
Bye,
mate.
man.